Good morning and welcome to the Scope Podcast. My name is Alessandro Mercado, third-year medical student and SGA president at NYIT College of Osteopathic Medicine. I'm really excited to be your host for today's podcast conversation, Fitness in Medicine, How an Active Lifestyle Helps Medical Students. Please welcome our special guests, third-year medical student Jared Zubin.
Hello, it's nice to meet everyone. Thanks for having me.
And NYIT Associate Professor of Family and Sports Medicine, Dr. Matthew Heller.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here today.
So I just wanted to share before we start that Jared is one of my closest friends in medical school. We spent the first 2 years in the same group, going through OMM and a lot of classes and anatomy labs. So I'm really happy to welcome as one of our special guests today.
Thank you. It's pretty crazy. It came full circle and now we're doing podcasts together. So.
Right? Isn't that so amazing? And for Dr. Heller, he was actually the first doctor I met at NYIT on the basketball court, believe it or not. We played a full match. It got really fun, some physicality, and a lot of points scored. And at the end of it, he was like, "Hey, I'm Dr. Heller. I'm one of your professors." And I had no idea. I thought he was another student.
That is quite a great memory that you have. And I remember that day very, very well. And usually what I try to do is the beginning of the school year. Nobody really knows who I am. And I like to go and I like to play basketball with the newcoming medical student, and I don't tell them who I am because I don't want them to play too nice, right? I like I like them to treat me like they'll just treat any other basketball player on the court.
And I gotta say, Dr. Heller definitely brought his A game that day. So without further ado, let's hop straight into our first question. All right, guys? Tell me about what draws you to the field of sports medicine and how'd you get into it? We could start with Jared.
Yeah, so I think sports medicine is such an amazing field. And I think what's so amazing about it is it's such a unique patient population you get to work with this field. And just when you do physical exams on these patients, it's not so much about just listening to their heart and lungs, but there's so much more to it in the sports medicine world where you actually get to do certain movements and tests to, feel what's going on with the patient. And it's just a very unique specialty. And I feel like no other field, gets the exposure that sports medicine does.
And I must say that I am a little biased, but I think sports medicine is an amazing field. What I love most about it, and what I love is that I'm primary care sports med. Right, so basically half the time the athlete come in is because they have a musculoskeletal complaint. The other time they're humans, just like us, right? They get bronchitis, they have asthma, they get headache, right? And just to be able to take care of the athletes as a whole and to be able to treat them and to get them back on the field so they can optimize their performance.
Very true. Really good points. There's so much more to it than just their diagnosis. These patients have such unique backgrounds and are engaged in such interesting activities. As an athlete myself, it's an amazingly intriguing field. Okay, let's take a little pivot here. What is one belief, a fitness belief you used to swear by that you now realize was completely wrong? Dr. Heller, if you want some insight, some input.
So one of the beliefs that I used to always think is that more is better, right? The more exercise you do, the more you better off you're going to be, right? But it's the overall health that goes along with in conjunction to exercising, right? It's eating healthy, right? It's avoiding smoking and any recreational drug use, right? It's being able to get the exercise, not just for the short term, but be able to exercise for your long-term daily health.
Just to jump on Dr. Heller's points there, I think he made some really good points there. Something I think that I can kind of build off of that is that, in the more is better aspect, just, when you go to the gym or you exercise, it's not just all about, for me, like the amount of weight you lift. I think a lot of people have the misconception that you always need to lift more in order to look better and to feel better, when in reality, it's not so much about how much you could do, but how much you can control, I think, when you're exercising. A lot of kids too, especially when they're starting out exercising, they always compare numbers with each other and they always say, "Oh, what's your best, bench press or squat?" When in reality, those numbers don't really matter, at least in my opinion. I think it's more important that you focus on what makes you feel good when you exercise.
That's a really good point. Thank you so much, both of you, because I guess one of the main aspects I'm getting here is it's more about quality, not so much quantity. Even if you extrapolate it to medical school, it's not always about how many hours you're studying. It's more about the quality of your study time and the quality of your workout time. Yeah, so let's shift gears a little bit. This one's going to be addressed to Jared. So I know you have a little bit of a background in bodybuilding. You used to compete, which is super, super cool to me. For someone who's getting into it or is a beginner, Jared, what are the most important training principles for beginners who want to improve their health and well-being?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I think one of the most important things as a beginner when you start out is that it's really good to keep track of how much you're doing each week, whether writing it down in terms of how much weight you're doing, how much of each exercise you're doing. Because every time you come into the gym, I think it's important that you have this mentality that every day I'm going to do one thing better that's going to make me better tomorrow than I was yesterday. So keeping that in mind, I think, keeping it simple is better in terms of how you eat, how you diet. It's not about making the fanciest meals or doing the fanciest exercises, but just keeping it simple, just a couple of exercises for each muscle group, I think can go a really long way. And kind of building off what I said before, not focusing so much on just lifting heavy weight your first time there, just gradually building up, see what feels good, and then just build every day.
I agree with Jared 100%. And one thing I can add is that no, you don't have to go through this alone, right? There's a lot of people that are in the same boat, right? They may be in your class, they may be your college, they may just be your friend that you see very occasionally, right? And if you guys get an idea where you're going to get together and you're going to begin exercising, right? Both of you are new, you're going to hold each other accountable, right? For getting to the gym, right? That's always the hardest part, is actually getting to the gym, getting to the workout. I think if you have a partner and you have somebody and maybe you have a team that can help you and support you along the way, that can also be a big plus.
And one quote that always resonates with me that has to do with what Dr. Heller and Jared were saying is, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because Jared and I actually used to work out a lot here on campus at NYIT. After our labs on Wednesdays, Thursdays, we'd work out for a couple hours and then even play basketball with some of our friends. And it's fun because you're not only being healthy, but you're doing it together, and you're forming relationships that could potentially last a lifetime.
And you're socializing, right? Socializing is great for mental health. It's great for overall mood. It's great for enhancing whatever your long-term goals are.
So while we're on the concept of beginners and people that want to get into exercising and protecting your physical, mental, emotional well-being, time is of the essence. We don't have a lot of time in medical school. How do you go about living this active lifestyle and staying fit if you have limited time? What do you think, Dr. Heller?
So time is the number one, to me, is the number one factor why most people try to avoid exercise. And honestly, if you don't have the time now, you will never have the time, right? So what we need to do is try to incorporate more snacking throughout the day. And when I talk about snacking, I'm not necessarily saying go grab a donut. I'm talking about exercise snacking. So with exercise snacking, what that means is that you do shorter interval of exercise throughout the entire day. So you don't have to plan a 30, 45 minutes or an hour workout. What you could do, you have 5 to 10 minutes in between meetings, in between studies, and in between lectures, right? You can go to the local stairs case and just run up and down the step a few times, right? You do that for a few minutes, and you do that a few times per day. All those minutes, all those steps will definitely add up.
Yeah, and just to build on the great point, and I never heard that term, so I kind of like that, exercise snacking. It's a little cliche to say, but I think, a good way to think about it is that honestly, the world is your gym. If you look around you, any floor, any staircase, anything you can pick yourself up and bring yourself back down, that's something you could exercise with. And, there's a whole field of calisthenics, just using your body weight exercise can get you in really good shape. So, if you don't have the time to go to a local gym or to go to a local facility, if you're short on time, just getting a pull-up bar at home or just any sort of exercise you can get can go a long ways, especially over time. It can add up if you do it just for a short interval every day.
And that's a great point, because when I first started at NYIT, College of Osteopathic Medicine, we had a very great saying that went along with movement is medicine. Right, so just the art of moving, right? You're exercising, your muscles are moving, right? When the muscles are moving, it's good for your muscles, good for your endurance, and it's good for your blood flow, right? You're good for your blood flow, right? Muscles are contracting, pushing on the vein, getting more blood right back to the heart where it needs to go. So I think just the art of being able to move, right, and not being forced to force yourself to the desk for long term, right, for many hours at a time, right? Your body want to be moving, and I think movement is medicine is a great way to go by.
I love that. Both Jared and Dr. Heller, thank you for that concept and that new idea of exercise snacking. Similar to Jared, I'd never heard of that before, but I kind of do this already, which is good. Not so much as a punishment, but more just as a reinforcement after I get a couple questions wrong and I'm frustrated and I got to blow off some steam. Sometimes I do 10 to 15 push-ups just to re-energize myself and reinvigorate so that I can get the next couple questions right. Okay, so let's take a turn here. We've been talking about a lot of positive stuff, but now let's talk about something, especially maybe from a physician standpoint, Dr. Heller. What's one injury pattern you see consistently that could have been prevented with a single habit change?
So one of the easiest injury pattern, and we see this all the time. I mean, you can go into the local medical school library at NYIT College of Osteopathic Medicine or any other library across the country, and I think the posture, right? Everybody is on their laptop, but the laptop is not in an ergonomically fit position. Ideally, you want the top 1/3 of the screen to be at your eye level, right? This way, you're not putting a strain on your neck by looking down, by looking up, right? So overall, I think one of the biggest injury patterns that we can try to prevent is to maintain good posture throughout the day.
And Jared, if you want to add to that from your bodybuilding background and just working out as a medical student, injury patterns that you see consistently that can be prevented by a single habit change?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I guess I'm taking the question more in the sense of a bodybuilding exercise pattern, and Dr. Heller's taking it from the student perspective. So I think it's good we're getting both perspectives here, as from a student and from exercising. But for me, I think a common injury pattern I see is flaring elbows in a lot of exercises. And what I mean by that is, for example, if someone's doing push-ups, let's say, a lot of people put their elbows out rather than keep them in. And elbow tendonitis, I feel like, is so common, especially with other exercises too, such as if you're working out and doing like a bench press exercise, instead of keeping your elbows in, if you flare them out, tendonitis can affect everything you do, whether it's, lifting something above your head, everyday activities, even doing legs, if you put heavy weight on your back and strain your elbows. So I think just keeping our elbows safe, keeping them tucked in for our exercises is super important, and that goes with many other exercises as well.
And I think it's important to recognize also is that pain, when people experience pain is there for a reason, right? Pain is letting you know that something is going on, and perhaps maybe you're overusing a certain joint, a certain ligament, a certain muscle, right? So like Dad was saying, if you're doing too much, I guess, with the upper extremities, right? Maybe on the next you take a day off, maybe you take 2 days off, and maybe one day you just do the lower extremities, or you do a little bit more of a cardio workout.
And just one point to add on just at the end is that, it's not worth doing something that will get you out of the gym for a couple of weeks, at the expense of just trying to lift a little extra. And you really have to listen to your body, because your body really tells you, like Dr. Heller said, if something's wrong, you have to make sure you take care of it for the long term.
Thank you so much, both of you guys. The takeaways that I'm seeing, there was a lot of great information from the response to that question, but I'm hearing trust your body, especially when you have pain. Try not to overpush your limit, because an injury can stop you and keep you out of commission for weeks, even months. And on a side note, protect those elbows. All right, to wrap it up, I have one last question that I think will be really impactful for our listeners, especially for Dr. Heller, who has a lot of patients, some of which are med students, some of which are just patients that are looking to improve their health. What would you tell them if it's someone that has never exercised before and is scared to get into it? What would you say to them?
I would simply tell them that the time is now to exercise, because you're always going to have something else that's coming up, right? You're always going to have another exam, another deadline, another meeting, another event, and you're going to keep saying, I'm going to do my exercise when this happened, or when that happened, or when the summer comes, and you realize you're not in the best fit to exercise, and then you're going to wait, and then it's the end of the summer again, right? So the cycle continues. So I would say right now, the time is now to exercise, and just by doing a little bit every day, right? And progressively work your way forward, right? Keep moving forward, moving to medicine, right? You want to keep your body moving, and overall for good health.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is that just little bits every day can go such a long way. A lot of people overwhelm themselves right off the bat saying, I need to work out X many hours a day and do so much, but just keep everything simple. It doesn't need to be complex. Just a little movement every day can go so far. And, for people who are short on time, just do your best, take a few minutes off a break of studying, and I promise that break of you exercising will go farther than having been studying that extra time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Heller. Thank you so much, Jared. Wow, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you to our two valuable guests for providing your insights and experiences on a very important topic. Everyone knows the benefits of exercising and fitness, but what we address this podcast is now we're giving people an opportunity to start if they haven't, and it's a lot more manageable than even in my head I thought it was. Thank you so much again, Dr. Heller, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This is great. And if this podcast can make a change in one person's life, right? Hopefully it will be a lot more, but if at least one person, then this is very, very well worth the time.
And thank you so much, Jared, for joining us as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been such a blast. And thank you, as always, to our valued Scope podcast listeners. I hope everyone has an amazing day.